Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. It's Friday. Thank God. Time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back, and let's chat about what is happening in the stars above. Although I haven't a clue. I do not have a clue what is going on in the stars, except for what I can see, on my charts. Because I think everything is so effed up right now. I don't have better words for it. I just don't. I don't know if you guys are feeling the pressure. Is it the end of the shadow? I mean, that doesn't end until, oh my God, until Sunday. Everything is just so wild and weird and getting weirder. And I just feel like pressure after pressure after pressure being stuck on top of me. I looked at Terry this morning and I said, I feel like I'm going to pop. It's like one thing after another. And I just don't know how. I mean, I have a defined root center. I can handle stress. I wonder how the people out there with open root centers are doing, because if anybody else's life is half as stressful as mine is at the moment, I feel for you. I feel for you. And here we are today with the moon in Pisces, a sign I'm learning to loathe when moon goes through it, because it brings every emotion up to the surface. And I mean, I've already gone through anger, upset, crying, and on top of that, excitement. I mean, how do you put all that in one morning? And I only got up at 6, right? It's only been 2 hours since I've been up, and I've been through that whole gamut of emotions. And then I remembered something. Oh yeah, Saturn is now at the gate 55 in your human design. That is on the emotional center. And in my own personal chart, that completes a channel of, you guessed it, emotion. So, sometimes you just have to rely on your wits and your guts and just courageously keep stepping forward, even though every day seems like you're slogging through stuff. And yeah, well, Pisces. So let's talk about the moon in Pisces. Then we'll talk more about Saturn in the 55. And then we'll talk more about the weekend energy. It's really not a big weekend, except the fact that I just realized that Venus is shifting, and also the collective shadow period is coming to an end, thankfully. And Tom says, this collective shadow really turned me inside and out and outside and in. I feel that, Tom. I feel you. Trust me, I feel you. It's like we have to be very good manifesting generators at the moment, or at least in my life, because I feel like I'm juggling, these different streams of things that keep coming up. Last week I discovered Friday on air that my sister had what they thought was a massive stroke. She was non-responsive, and that caused me to have to leave town right away and go be there. And halfway there, we are halfway to Eastern Washington, when my brother-in-law texts me and says, hey, she's coming around. She's responding to people. Well, it turns out, I mean, besides the fact that she's got severe brain damage or brain denigration over time here, she also had COVID and also had a UTI. So 2 things that really can, especially in an older person, and she's 76, could really, do some mental damage. And over the next day, she started to come back, and she was more lively. She recognized us momentarily, except she kept looking at my 2 daughters who went with me over there and saying, where's your mother? And then I would say, I'm right here. And she'd say, oh, hi, what's your name? So there's this knife in the heart kind of feeling, because parts of her are just gone. They're not the same. And then she had a downturn just as we were leaving to come home. She had another really bad spell, a downturn, and she's not quite recovered from that. So now they have decided that she is going on what they call palliative care or hospice, as in this is not something that's recoverable at this point in time. So now we have to sort of square with the need to be with her more frequently, to be there in the end of her life, I guess is how you would look at that. And it's coming to peace with that. That's the problem because, anyway. And then I get home and my sister-in-law is, I don't know how to describe it. She's gone schizophrenic. I mean, that's about the only way that I can describe this. Talking in different voices, starting to hysterically laugh, and then going catatonic, and then going into different like life periods and like pretending she's a little girl, and oh my gosh. And so then I got to deal with that yesterday to help my brother-in-law. This is Terry's twin brother's wife. And that takes you on the adventure of a lifetime into the mental health system that is so broken and so broken. It's just broken. So getting her help is a matter now of the family. We're going to have to come together. We are meeting together tomorrow to try to decide, what do we do? How do we support her and him? And there's just no, I mean, but there's no like book that you can pull off your shelf that says, this is what you do when someone starts to have a mental breakdown. Take them to the doctor, right? But then the doctor's hands are tied because, they have 20 minutes with you in conveyor belt medicine. That's all they can spend. And then they say, okay, well, we're going to send you to a counselor to behavioral health. Well, behavioral health can't see her until August 17th. No lie. At first, they tried to say, if it wasn't for the doctors intervening, they would have seen her until October. What are we supposed to do with her in the meantime? It's just kind of crazy things like that. And my brother-in-law is trying to manage all of this himself. And he has been on labor and industries outage for a while because he had knee surgery. And he has to go back to work August 9th. What do we do with her? So it's just all these things. And, you try to feel like you can help, but your helping sometimes is so little, such a little drop in the bucket of what can be done. So what do? You just keep going on. You go on. And astrologically, I think it's a time where we're all being kind of pushed through what I like to think of as the eye of the needle. I don't like to think about it that way, but that's how I think about it. And, where things are getting very, very difficult. And for some people, like I can say for myself, I'm fine. If that's one thing I have to do, I have to keep checking back in with myself and going, I'm fine, right? I'm healthy. I've got my mind. I've got my life is fine. It's, the other things that pull at you that, take you on the adventure of a lifetime sometimes, right? So I have to keep reminding myself, this isn't you, right? This isn't you. It's happening in your family and you want to be there because you love them and support them, but it isn't me. And sometimes that's hard when you're in the heat of the moment, right? I was the one that took them to get some paperwork started for the Department of Social and Health Services yesterday. And I told TJ, you go in and take care of it. I'll sit here in the car with her. We had to put the child locks on the door because over the weekend when I was in Eastern Washington, Terry was driving them somewhere and she opened the car door to get out while he was moving on a freeway at 55, 60 miles an hour. Child locks are an adult's best friend. Anyway, I don't mean to go on and on about this, but somehow I just had to, if you understand what is happening in my life and when I have to somehow disappear, then I feel better about that. All right, let's go back to astrology. So today the moon in Pisces is ending its transit, right? Today the moon will transition into Aries. It won't be until later this evening. We'll have a short void of course moon from 6:20 p.m. This is West Coast time until 8:19 p.m. when then the moon will shift into Aries. I think I'm really looking forward to that. That shift out of emotional Pisces with also other emotional things going on. But Pisces energy is very sensitive. There's a lot of emotional energy available here. And it's not just the sensitivity to each other's emotions or to your own emotions. It's also sensitivity to things that are happening outside of the physical world, right? Outside of the physical realm, being able to sort of tap into the psychic realm or to the angelic realm. And interesting, I had a long conversation with one of my daughters about angels just the other day because they're these beings that we talk about, and they're unseen, right? So Pisces energy helps us tap more into those things that are unseen, but also tuning into the currents of energy that are running between all of us, but also across the planet. And being able to maybe even, it's a psychic sign, it's a water sign. So being able to sort of tap into what's happening, what may happen, what pathways are opening up, that type of thing. And of course, then also compassion and empathy are a big part of the Pisces experience. Now, it's also the imagery and the imagination and all of the fantastical type things that we can, fantasy world things that we can tap into. Trust me when I say I would love to tap into fantasy right now, but I don't have the time. The real world calls. But sometimes there's, that escape route for some people to be able to, move into a bit of fantasy or dreaminess, right? If you're dreaming a lot at night over the last day or two, it's likely because the moon has been in Pisces. But there's also a surreal quality that comes up. And maybe that's what I really come up against with the moon in Pisces, is that everything happening around me feels surreal. It's real. I can feel it. I can see it. It's happening. But it just feels like it's a dream at the same time, which is bizarre, right? But that's, again, a Piscean trait. And remember, we have Saturn in Pisces and Neptune in Pisces and the moon now moving through Pisces. So that Pisces energy is kind of ramped up a bit. And we also have the lostness in here in this sign and overwhelm. That's maybe the word for me this morning, is overwhelm. That's it. That's the word. But we also have divine guidance, right? Access to our higher self, access to our guides, tuning into the spirit plane, and maybe, being in a more meditative state, maybe even, asking for support from those unseen helpers. It's all very divine when we get into Piscean energy. Now, we do have to watch out for some things. Some things I've already talked about, lostness and overwhelm, but it's also a victim-y energy. In Pisces, sometimes we get into helplessness, or we get anxiety, right? Anxiety, emotional anxiety, right? We have mental anxiety sometimes, but this is more emotional anxiety. And that can trigger our addictions. It can trigger our escapist tendencies. It can trigger, our shutting down. So we want to be careful that we don't dig into being the victim. Like, I have to keep reminding myself, this is not happening to you. You're fine. This is happening, to people you love, but you can still keep a little bit of that boundary between where you are and where they are. So that's our moon in Pisces. And of course, moving into Aries over the weekend makes a huge change in the energies. So later tonight, as we are, moving into nighttime, 8:19 my time. So East Coast, that's 11:19. If you're beyond the East Coast of the United States, it's going to be into Saturday morning that the moon changes for you guys. But it's about fresh starts, right? Aries energy brings us the new. the courage to take action, to move forward in a new way. It brings us bursts of energy. And it is also a sign of the fighter, the spiritual warrior, or just the plain warrior energy. So we do have to watch out for fights, triggering fights or conflicts with others, or others trying to draw us into their conflicts with maybe sort of an aggressive attitude rather than being assertive. There's aggression out there. Watch out for taking dangerous risks, right? No getting in cars and driving 100 miles an hour just because you need excitement. Not a good plan. But it is also a sign in Aries, and you probably, this is sort of a dichotomy here in Aries. Aries is very activated because of Mars, but it is also a sign of just being, right? It isn't just about your doing and all the things that you could do and all the things that you need to do. It is also very much about your beingness and your feeling sort of be responsible for your own personal authority, right? This is very personal energy, being responsible for your own life, for your own things that you have done. And we forget that sometimes, because often when we have this very high energy, it's all about the doing. How much more can I do? How much more can I get done? Instead of who else could I be, or who could I be? How could I add to my just being? Just being, right? Just being. It is the I am, right? Aries is I am. And fill in that, right? I am, or just be that I am, right? I mean, it could be a verb and it could be just a preposition holding space for the next part of the sentence. So either way, we look at that. We have that going on for us now from Saturday or late tonight, West Coast, early Saturday, all the way through Sunday evening. Monday, we wake up with the moon in Taurus. So it's not that long of a transit, actually, when you think about it. A few days worth of taking care, making sure we don't say the wrong things or start fights. But also we have to get through today's sensitivity kind of energy. So let's go back and say good morning to people. Christine, I do have your chart open, so maybe we didn't get to do that last week. So we'll take a look at your draconic chart and talk a little bit about that. It's good to have you with us this morning. Tom and Debbie, thank you for being here. Debbie, thank you for the reminder. Please, if you're listening and you're enjoying the video, please hit the like button or the thumbs up button if you're on Facebook. Or did I do that backwards? Thumbs up and like on either one of the platforms that you're listening to this morning. And Sylvester, good morning to you. It's good to see you. And thank you for sending good vibes. Good morning, Gayla and Nico. Thank you so much, Nico. I appreciate that. And I know, keep the faith, right? Stay strong and just do your best. Terry actually saw me breaking apart this morning and he's like, I'm out of here. I love you. Have a good day. I'm like, okay, if he's running away from me, I need to change something. And so obviously better served by being more together. Christine, Alzheimer's can do that. My friend's elderly mother became a little girl again. Oh gosh. Yeah, sorry. It's a tough one. It's so tough. And thank you, Loving Light. I appreciate those words. All right. Now, last week, or was it last year? I mean, I don't know now. It was on July 31st. So really, that was just Monday. Can you believe it? I mean, time seems to fly by so fast. I don't even know what date it is. But on that date, Saturn moved into the gate 55. Remember, he was there at the beginning of the year. And that brought up issues around abundance and emotion and spiritual abundance, not just the work that we do that brings us abundance or money kind of things, but abundance that is ours by birthright. And then he went on into the gate 37. And now that he is retrograde, he's moving backward into the 55 once more. So now we have Saturn in retrograde, reminding us of all of the things about the 55. And, you know, this is one of my most favorite gates in all of human design, especially in the gene keys, where we see that in the shadow, this is the energy of victimhood. It's victimy energy. But in the gift and in the city of the gene keys, this is freedom and bigger freedom, right? I always think of it as capital F freedom and then all caps freedom in the highest expression. And that's because there's this real idea that our human selves get really caught up into this victim energy. Our emotions push us into feeling bad about ourselves, feeling unable to cope with the emotions of others, caught up in the events that are happening around us. All of those types of things are a part of the 55. And it's deeply mystical, though. This gate really ties us into the mysticism of plenty, the mysticism of abundance, the mysticism of you as an attractor for all of the things that are going on in your life, and your emotions being part of that equation of what's happening for you. What's happening to you might be the more victimy thing to say or think, but it's about the what's happening for you. Now, this is a channel that really is about restoring the flow of abundance by righting the ship of emotion. So by that, I mean, it's the emotional energy when joined with thinking. Like, you can think things all day long, and if you're thinking not happy thoughts or not bad thoughts, it's not going to appear magically before your eyes, right? It just isn't. It's only one part of the equation. The other part of this equation is our emotional energy. It's got creative energy. The emotional solar plexus is creative, and the 55 is on the creative solar plexus emotional center. So we have a lot of ability at this point to create from the emotions. And, if you're adding emotion positively, then you're able to make motion move forward, motion, right? Moving forward. This is also a channel that's auditory. So if you're hearing things, there's a reason. Hearing music perhaps, or hearing something in your head that's telling you to go do something differently. It's auditory. It's mutative energy. This changes us, right? This is energy that is designed to cause us to move more towards spirit, to more towards being the divine embodiment of spirit. Divine embodiment of spirit. I like that, right? I kind of love that. That I told you this was deeply mystical. And there is that mysticism that's involved here with that feeling of being divine in the physical body. But it's also indecisive and fearful energy. It's not fearful like the spleen, where the spleen energy is like, I'm afraid I'm going to die, or I'm afraid I'm going to, fail, or I'm not going to get what I need. I'm not adequate to the task. The fear here is more about being separate, about the faith it takes to know that you're part of something bigger than what you are, right? That if you died tomorrow, that your body perished, but not you. The part that animates your body didn't die, right? It moved on to the next sphere, next dimension, wherever it moves, right? But really in the 55, what happens is we can embody the fear almost of being alone, that there's nothing else out there, and that this is all there is, and I'm not liking what I see, so what am I doing? So the 55 can be very powerful, tying us to the fearful nature of victimhood. And on the other end, it's only one step to take freedom. right? The one step to take freedom. And the word I have for you in that is faith, right? Faith. Faith that everything is happening as it should, when it is meant to happen, and in the highest and best for you. Now, I want to say F that, right? A lot of the time I do. Right now, because of things that are going on, right? And that's the nature of being the human, right? The human is rejecting that, her sister's dying or her sister-in-law needs some very severe help, and that there's other chaotic things going on too that I too numerous to mention. That's my human self. That's your human self. But the divine self was able to get herself here to talk to you all this morning because there is something so much more than just what we as human beings appear to be feeling. So the lesson, if we will, in this Saturn at the gate 55 is about trusting, having faith, surrendering to, or just learning to trust source or God or your higher power, whatever it is that you want to express it as. To know that you are fully supported, even when it feels like you've been abandoned, you have not been abandoned. It is also mastering the art of emotional alignment because it is your most creative power. And what I mean by that is your emotions tell you some information. So, we think that we are kind of triggered by emotions, but emotions tell you where you're out of alignment or where you're in alignment, right? So when you're aligned with understanding that source is there and that you are not alone and that there's some bigger plan in action here, then you are emotionally lined, at least with neutrality, if not able to, embody a little bit of joy. When you are not trusting source, then the creative power is moving more toward the other side, where now you have the angry, you have the upset, you have the depression, you have you name it, right? But that gives you information too. It's telling you where you've gotten out of alignment with your divine self. So there's a lot of information encoded in emotions that can help us reorient ourselves to be more in alignment with that creative power. Saturn at 55 is about teaching us the steps that we have to take to get there, right? Saturn, the due diligence, right? The response ability, not reactivity, but responsibility. In the unbalanced expression in this gate, and some of us we're going to feel that too. I think mixed in with the lesson and the gift, we're going to get the shadowy unbalanced expression too, and it's particularly indecisive, not knowing what to do. Fear and lack also come up here. This is where hoarding is. Like I watch the show Hoarders periodically when it's on. And I always want to go to their human designs and see what the 3955 looks like, right? The 39 is on the root center. And if it connects to the 55, often there is this feeling of not having enough, not being enough. So we try to fill the void, right? We're filling the void with stuff, or food maybe, or lots of different ways in which we try to fill that void. There's also the possibility here that we have been rather than trusting source, God, to be the where our faith should be put. Instead, we draw upon willpower and we try to power our way through everything, which then leads to burnout, right? It leads to burnout. It leads to illnesses and anxieties and things like that. So instead, we sort of need to relax and just allow the flow. Okay, I'm going to share what another emotional trigger was for me this morning. My son's birthday, Wesley, is on the 9th. And so this weekend, we are all going over to Friday Harbor, Saturday or Sunday, to Friday Harbor's on an island. So I have to take a ferry to get there. And this morning was the first time, since 2 weeks ago that you could make reservations for the ferries. And the system wasn't working. I mean, literally, system wasn't working. And I was sitting there trying to make a reservation. When I finally got in, it showed me that there were no reservations available. And on worse yet, there was no boats coming home. And I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done. I'm just so done with this, right? So my two daughters were also trying to get reservations to get on the ferry. And the minute I just released it, I walked away. I just said, this spirit help me get this done. While I was blow drying my hair, I got an email from my daughter saying, I was able to get us all on a boat. Faith, right? Faith is necessary. And what can I say? Saturn at 55, we're learning all about this, moving out of the fear and into the faith that everything will be okay. But it's more than that. The mastery in this, the highest expression, the city, the freedom in it is about the ability to hold an emotional frequency of energy that is in alignment with a vision that is then aligning you to your heart's desire, even if the whole outside world looks chaotic and appears like it's not going to happen. That was a big lesson for me this morning, to just walk away. Walk away. If I get on a boat, great. If I don't, what can I do? I don't know. I could walk on the ferry. I could have just, gone to the ferry and walked on. You could do that. You just have to make reservations for cars. So there are, spirit moves us in mysterious ways with this gate. And in fact, I want to check real quick how much longer we have the 55. I want to say it's through the rest of the year, but I might be wrong. December, yep, through the rest of the year. And maybe because I don't have 2024s yet, maybe even into the beginning of 2024. So learn this lesson, right? Learn this lesson. It serves us when we can remember that that we are in charge of our emotions. They're not happening to you. It might feel like it's happening to you, but you're really, outside circumstances, something can happen and it generates an emotion. But who's expressing the emotion is the question. And I'm not saying that we all have to be just neutral and not express at all, but really realize what you're doing with your emotional energy and how powerful it is as a creative force, because it really is. All right. Any questions about the 55? Good morning, Terry and Linny. It's great to see you guys out there. Today's energy feels a tad lighter than yesterday's. It feels a whole lot better right this minute than it did yesterday. Yesterday it had a sizzle to it, if I could, qualify it as a live energy. It felt like it was sizzling. Terry Strauss says, yes, I heard Wilma. It was before my client and it was her grandmother, not my normal, but I loved it. Oh, that's awesome, Terry Strauss. And anyway, questions about the 55, how to use it in your own life. What does it mean for you? Well, let's talk about that. Let's just carry this conversation on a little bit further, because some of you, if you look at your natal human design chart, you have the 55 maybe open, which means it's white, right? It's white. And maybe the 39 at its opposite end. Let me see if I can get into my body graph and show. I also pulled a nail off yesterday. Like, I need more fun in my life. Is that body graph chart? There we go. And so I had to put a Band-Aid on because I kept hitting it. But I want to show you how this moves in the chart. Thank you. Dismiss. And no. Okay, let me share my screen. That was not what I meant to do. This is what I meant to do. Okay, so. All right, now you should be seeing a blank human design chart at this point in time. So what we're talking about is this gate down here, the gate 55. and the emotional center, right? The emotional center is the center for emotion, and it is the seat of our creative power. And then it meets up over here at the gate 39 on the root center, which is the center for success in terms of our life, being able to have what we need to be able to move outward into the world. The gate 39 is called the gate of provocation, and the 55 is called the gate of abundance or faith. In quantum human design, we call it the gate of faith. And I think faith actually is a better word for it. But in the gene keys, of course, this is where we find freedom. Now, in your own personal chart, you may have this entire channel. Oops, one more. There we go. Open. And open is white. I'm going to keep that defined. So this whole channel from 55 to 39 may be white, which means that now you have a hanging gate 55 in your chart, which means that you may be attracting situations to yourself that are designed to remind you about being a spirit, being inspirited. You may have a mystical quality being attracted to you. You may have issues around learning about faith, having faith in a higher power. You may also find yourself experiencing that through other people in your life, because the other side of this channel, if you come into contact, say, with someone that has the gate 39, it's going to complete that channel as an electromagnetic, and you'll be experiencing the whole channel of emoting, okay? Now, what if you have the gate 55 defined already, but you don't have the gate 39 defined? You have the same sort of situation where you are always attracting to you situations or people that are designed to teach you about having faith in a higher power, faith in the abundant nature of the universe, recognizing when your emotions are pulling you into fear, and creating more of that fearful situation for yourself. And if you are someone who doesn't have the gate 55, but you have the gate 39 hanging, this is called a hanging gate when it looks like this, when it's just hanging there. If you have that hanging, now suddenly that entire channel is connected, because the 55 is being populated by Saturn. And whatever planet that you have here that's defining the 39 is now feeding into Saturnian duty and responsibility, making plans, being solid, building a foundation perhaps where faith plays a larger part, a larger role in your life, right? And then for people like me, and I don't know, maybe others who have the whole channel already defined, it kind of is adding to the need for faith, right? The need for faith on the other side. Whenever something matches by transit what you already have in your natal chart, you are amping up, if you will, some of that energy. It's already a part of your life. It's already been a part of your life, but now circumstances may come along that challenge that for you, or create a situation of, like in my life right now, of a lot of things that can drag me into emotional responses. So that tells you about your own personal chart. So if you need your own personal chart, you can go to my website and get your own free chart, and it'll tell you what type you are, what your strategy is, what your authority is, and all of that. And you'll be able to see that graphic and how it is defined for you. All right. Questions? Anybody? Okay. No questions. Good. So Terry, or not Terry, Christine. As we last week, we started talking about draconic astrology. And draconic astrology is, based on dragon. Draconic is dragon, the dragon's head and the dragon's tail, the north node and the south node, and how we can pull in more details about your life purpose and your soul purpose by comparing your natal chart to your draconic chart and bringing them both together in a sort of relationship kind of synastry that allows us to see how all those planets are playing together in both instances. So we worked through somebody's chart last week, and we were going to try to get to Christine's, and we didn't get to. So Friday, I was going to do hers last week, and yeah, well, that didn't happen. So we're going to do this today. We're going to take another look at what we can find in a draconic chart. What am I looking for when I do that kind of reading with someone? And how do I pull out pieces of information using that system that aren't always obvious when we do a regular natal astrology chart or a transit astrology reading, or even a human design reading for that matter. I haven't yet tested whether human design can be made into a draconic chart or not. I just don't know if that can happen. I still have to, I'm mastering the astrology part of it at this point, so I don't want to add more to it at the moment. All right, Christine, if you're okay, I am going to share your screen, your chart on my screen. And here we go. All right, so Christine Buckingham, here is your astrology chart. Now, I've stripped it down a little bit, right? I took out most of the goddesses. I left in the Black Moon Lilith because I'm looking at different things here. Instead of looking at how everything is playing, I'm looking at key things. And those key things are moon driven, because the moon is what the nodes are based on, right? It's the passage of the moon north of the equator and south of the equator. And in our lives, that is what we call the dragon's head, the dragon's tail, the north node and the south node. It is all about the moon. So we want to look at the moon. So the first thing I noticed is the phase of the moon that you're born in. That is the first thing I look at in everybody's Draco, natal chart now, if I'm looking at it from a Draco standpoint. And in your particular chart, your moon is right here in Scorpio, 12 degrees of Scorpio, just making sure I do have you there, 12 degrees of Scorpio. And I see that the sun is ahead. Remember, everything in an astrology chart moves around the counterclockwise direction of the clock. So in this case, then the moon is behind the sun. The sun is ahead of the moon, which means that you're in a waning phase of the moon cycle, right? It would start here with a conjunction of the sun and the moon, and then move around this way. And you're born at what is called the disseminating phase of the moon. And in the disseminating phase of the moon, what you have is really the energy of bringing information out to the world. So if we look deeper just at that, you're a disseminator of information, right? You've been through the experiences of gathering info, gathering details, and you're here to share those with people. And I've seen you do it here on the morning show, right? I've seen you. We talk about a book, or an author, or an event that has happened on the planet. And next thing I know, you're popping up with the dates or pieces of information about it, filling in sort of the gaps, if you will, of what I've just talked about. And it's a wonderful validation of the disseminating moon, because in that is sort of a messenger. So there's a part of you that is a messenger. Now, with your sun in Pisces, that would make it sound like maybe a spiritual messenger, or a messenger, a message of empathy and compassion, of learning about emotion, of being sensitive to your own emotion as well as to other people's emotions, and then sharing what you find out. That's the disseminating moon. Okay. Now, of course, I'm not doing a full-on reading here, sweetie. I wish I had the time, but literally it takes me about 2 hours to put together a draconic reading. A session to do the session takes 90 minutes, but I'm spending hours ahead of time putting all of it together. So I'm just going to point out some of the key things that pop out at me, okay? So by no means is this complete. But that was the first thing that popped out to me, is that you're in the disseminating moon. So you're here to be that messenger, and that might add into a life purpose in a way that maybe you don't expect. Now, let's take a look at that, because your life purpose is here in Scorpio, along with your moon, along with Neptune, and along with Jupiter, right? So you have a lot of investigating, digging deeper, very much emotional, but maybe held in check emotional energy here. With the North Node in Scorpio, it feels to me like, and I should have pulled your human design to see if you're an investigator type somewhere, but it feels to me like you're here bringing in information perhaps that people have forgotten. So details of things, or just the undercurrent of energies or information that needs to be brought to the light, and to be more investigative. When we look at Scorpio energy, we have a great investigator, detective energy. So you could have possibly used that very formidable energy to become a detective or an investigator of some type. But no matter if you did that for a living or not, you would still have that keen mind that is digging deeper, right? Digging into. But this is also a sign of transformation and life and death, right? Life and death, regenerative, rebirthing energies. So another part of your destiny, we would say, another part of your soul purpose or life purpose would be to share what you find deeper. When you're digging deeper into something, you're here to share that with others. And that's not always comfortable, right? You're maybe sometimes in an awkward position of wanting to transmit some details to people that they don't want to hear. They're not ready for the transformation. But you might also find sometimes that you're the one that's in receipt of those pieces of information that maybe you have to work through the whole transformative process with. Now, it's in your 7th house here. So that makes me think this plays out in your relationships, like your marriage or your most significant other, business partnerships, or the people that are closest to you. And there's also passion here. There's a passion of sharing something from the deeper part of yourself. And definitely someone that's here to do that type of thing. And it may have an impact, sometimes in the negative, on the people around you, that they don't want to hear. When you've become empowered, they may not want to hear that. They don't want to hear about that. But that doesn't mean that you're not here to send that message out there. Again, you can look to your human design chart for the disposition of the throat. Is it defined or is it open? That will tell you more about how you go about communicating these things to people. But I also, besides just looking at the moon and the North Node and the South Node, of course, over here in Taurus, I want to see the relationship of these planets and how they're working with others. And I right away noticed that there's a point of a yod here, right? And the yod is pointing at about 2 degrees of Scorpio, right? And you have 0 degrees of Jupiter, and you have 4 degrees Neptune. So there's this conglomeration of planets here that are the release point for the base energy here between your Black Moon Lilith and your ascendant, your personality. So the Black Moon Lilith here is natal for you in Aries. And that's sometimes a fear of being yourself, being able to let your full self be seen. So it can be that, feeding into Scorpio, that you've had a reticence to really show your true colors or to bring your truth out, and you need to learn how to do that. But with the ascendant in Taurus, it would also suggest that you need to learn how to do that in a way, in the right timing, with the right people, and as we would say in human design, with the invitation to share, right? Otherwise, it could be falling on deaf ears and become a source of pain or a wound for you that then requires some, regeneration or some transformation yet again. So you're living a very transformative life, and that's very apparent here in your natal chart. Now, I had written down a bunch of things here that I wanted to share. I got to see if I still have that chart because I had it earlier this morning. Is it here? Here it is. All right. Also, in looking at the natal charts and Draco charts, we talk about what planets are in their power and which ones are debilitated somewhat. So, in looking at your chart, the moon in Scorpio is in its fall, which is surprising to me, but it is in its fall. And it's because it's exalted in Taurus, and the opposite sign is where the planet would be in its fall. In your chart, Mars is exalted. Mars is exalted in Capricorn, which gives that, I'm going to say the word militant edge, but also the very business oriented, serious nature here, and Mars pushing forward with agendas and doing plans and things like that. You also have Mercury in detriment and Uranus in detriment. Here's Mercury. And here, over here is Uranus. Down here is Uranus. Uranus in Leo is in detriment. So you have, 3 of 4 planets that are not particularly happy, that you have a feeling maybe sometimes of spinning your wheels trying to get ahead to do anything with these planets. And Mars exalted and possibly leading you away from emotions instead of feeling emotions, or on the other hand, expressing emotions when what you need to be is more, less, let's say, more detached or less emotional. Now, I'm going to change this chart now, and I'm going to stop sharing because it doesn't always show when. I want to show now what your Draco chart looks like. So that's just some basic things out of your natal chart. And now let's see if Draco is going to be at the bottom, and then I'll share my screen here in just a moment, and you'll see the difference, and we'll pull out what are some of the differences. Because what happens in a Draco chart is that we get to see maybe where you get more empowerment, and sometimes where some of the more negative expressions of the natal chart get muted somewhat in the Draco chart. So it tends to act as a balancing. So let's do that real quickly here. And all right, so now you're seeing your Draco chart or Draconic chart. I think it says Draconitic on the program that I'm using, Astro. And you'll know it's a Draco chart because it has a little D in each of the signs. So you'll know this isn't the natal, but this is what your Draco chart would look like. And now in the Draco chart, things, like your moon changes signs. It moves off into Aries. So it takes on a new energy. So now these are undercurrents, Christine, undercurrents, right? That can support your life purpose and show, some of the things that maybe were hidden somewhat in your natal chart. And what we see then, the moon and sun, by the way, they still have the same relationship. In a Draco chart, we move the nodes to 0 degrees of Aries and 0 degrees of Libra. And just like this is a new beginning kind of energy here. So how can we merge the Draco chart, the new beginning chart, with the more energies that are of the wiser, let's say, natal chart, right? Natal chart's telling you what you're doing in this lifetime. Draco chart's kind of giving you some of the underlying things. So underlying the moon that you have in Scorpio is your moon now in Aries. And by the way, one of the members, or one of the 2 planets that rule Scorpio, Mars, is also the ruler of Aries. So we have a rulership thing here. So Mars still seems to be a very powerful driver in your chart, leading you to independence, leading you to express yourself in very bold ways, but also resisting aggression. And, sometimes that aggression gets kind of turned around where other people become aggressive to you. Either way, you're learning how to deal with the emotion, the moon, in a Martian sort of way, right? How do you still move forward boldly, even if you're under attack? And how do you avoid becoming the mode of attack for someone else. So we see that there could be this underlying current of learning how to use emotional energy wisely and how to take right action in situations of relationship, because again, the moon's still here in the 7th house of the chart. But now we have this yod pointed at Jupiter, and Jupiter in Pisces, a sign it rules. So your Jupiter has grown in benefit in the Draco chart. In the other chart, in your natal chart, it's just neutral. It doesn't have, it's not in its fall or detriment, and it's not in its exaltation or in its rulership. But here now, Jupiter is in its rulership, and we really get to see that part of your life purpose is to grow through becoming more emotionally sensitive, to be really your own, oh God, I'm going to use the word, your own guru, your own master, right? Being your own wise woman, your own sage. Okay. Does that make sense? I'll come back to comments in a minute. At the base, again, we have the Black Moon Lilith, this time in Leo. And a Leo Black Moon Lilith gets assaulted by ego, and either of trying to avoid being egoic or getting on the other end of things, and it becomes egoic. And the shadow of all of this is to learn to go with the flow of change, but to also understand that, yeah, you have an ego and just we don't want the ego to take over. We want to be able, the ego should be in the service of you as a being, right? As a soul and a higher order being. And also the ascendant here in Libra. And we know Libra is a sign of relationship. So it is a sign that is important here as part of your personality, is about being in relationships. So we see that you might have to adjust, and we might have to sacrifice fears around change, being indecisive, but also, doing what you think makes other people happy rather than doing what you want for yourself. And all of that points at Jupiter, the path of growth for you in this chart, right? The path of growth. There's also a T square here pointed again at Jupiter. And this one with the midheaven and Uranus, this is not an exact one. It's a little weaker, but still in your work and in your authoritative self, and in your maybe rebel self, learning how to release spiritual wisdom out into the world. You're releasing spiritual wisdom. That's what they're, even your work here, this is the 6th house. The work, service, and health component looks like helping others in some path of service to heal either emotionally or physically, mentally, all of that kind of thing. It's highly spiritual. There was something else. Oh, your sun. The sun here moves into Leo in the Draco chart, which empowers the sun. So you now have an empowered sun, a neutral Mercury, where before it was in detriment, and the Black Moon Lilith, all in Leo. That suggests that part of your life purpose is to learn to follow your heart, follow what you love, to be around people. This is the 11th house, people that love and support you, that are trustworthy, building like-mindedness with the groups of people that you're with. There's no need for you to hang around the people that don't make you feel good, or aren't acting, in a spiritual way, or people that don't, support you. You just don't need to be around those kinds of people. Again, kind of a minor thing in here, but also a part of your life purpose. And finally, because I just want to complete this, let's look at your combination chart, where we bring both the Draco and the natal together. And we'll just do that quickly, just so we can see it. And I'm going to again share my screen. Okay. All right, so now this is what it looks like when we bring these two together. So let me see if I can make this go a little smaller. so we can fit it all in the screen. There we go. So on the inner wheel is your natal chart. On the outer wheel is the Draco chart. So we bring them together, and what we're looking for then, Christine, are places where they interact. So for example, Pluto, you know, pretty close here to your natal part of fortune and Mars, setting out a path of change and regeneration in your life, kind of finding yourself in destruction and rebuild mode, maybe many times throughout your life, whether that is, you know, through what happens when you marry and you get into a relationship and how that changes your life. And I'm just using this as an example. And then if you were to divorce and what happens when that happens, right? That regeneration is needed again. So here we have those life and death changes that are going on. And when I say life and death, I don't mean like literally death and life. I mean kind of that whole idea of rebirthing in different ways throughout your life. It's very key to some of the lessons you're learning. And there's also the sense here that with the, again, a yod, right, is pointed at that Mars, that's releasing energy, right? You're releasing it out in ways that are going to be supportive. And that may change your foundation different times in your life. Let's look over here. You can see this one is complex. We have the Draco, Jupiter, Neptune, North Node, Moon. The North Node absolutely conjunct your natal Black Moon Lilith, and in Aries, which means that there's a big, big lesson underlying everything here for you about becoming independent, about releasing codependence, about understanding, maybe it's more about interdependence, right? Standing on your own 2 feet, not necessarily needing anybody else, finding your own true, authentic identity, and not fearing to put yourself out there boldly. Boldly being you could be a life purpose that, you know, had been sort of hidden in all of this. And Saturn, kind of close to the ascendant. We'd have to take a look deeper at that one. Anything else jumping out at me? Pluto also in a conjunction with the natal the Draco Black Moon Lilith. And that kind of echoes a theme of following your heart, being your own self, kind of empowered, not disempowered, right? Getting out of situations where you have become disempowered. And another thing here, the ascendant of the Draco chart in Libra connected to the vertex of your natal chart. And, you know, these are all sort of close too, which kind of shows where maybe you have had times in your life where you've people pleased, where you've said things to make other people happy or done things to make other people happy, and you yourself didn't find that happiness or that fulfillment in all of that. That's a lot. So, okay. Full chart isn't visible. Oh, darn. Well, I hope you guys got to see it. I could see it, so I'm not sure. Maybe make the screen bigger or, you know, go back to the video and see if you can pull it out. Hello, Kajella, and defined root not handling stress well. I know the feeling. And you're welcome, Christine, Tom. Let's see. I do have time into the card. Let's see if I can pull. I haven't done cards in a long time. What kind of card, Tom? Let's do a Pleiadian one since we're in a Pleiadian time period of the collective collective shadow, and see what kind of guidance we might get from that. I never realized how a Band-Aid on your index finger can make you feel like you're all thumbs. Okay, so we'll do that. This will be for the weekend. And it says, you are a divine spark of light, here to bring the light of your fire into the world. It's a card 5, nature, fire. Fire nature. It's kind of pretty. It's kind of bright. So let's see what that says. Well, it's pretty obvious what that one is. It's kind of be the energy we were just talking about in Christine's chart of following your passion, living from your heart. And as a divine spark of light, you carry fire within you. The element of fire is one of the foundational elements on Earth because it provides heat and light to support life. At the more basic level, your sun, which is fire, warms the entire planet and offers nutrition to the plants and other living beings on Earth, including you. Light from the sun infuses you with wisdom and helps you to understand yourselves as waves of energy. Fire is light, and through a more thorough understanding of fire, you may begin to understand how the light that you are is vital to the evolutionary process of life on Earth. You connect to source through the energy of light. Fire is the most important element for the transmutational process of change. On a physical level, fire burns away anything that needs to be destroyed to make room for new growth and possibilities. As part of you, the energy of fire can help you to burn or transcend anything that is in the way of your personal growth. Yet, the light of fire must be used consciously, both in the physical world and in your inner world, through directing your will for your own conscious evolution. Fire is the element most closely associated with the process of ascension. The light of fire illuminates the merging of your physical body and your light body go together. Pay attention to the fire or light within you. The Pleiadians relate the earth element of fire with the cosmic energy of joy. Be joyful that you are waves of energy, a divine being of light. And the universal energy of 5 that is a part of this card, it says change. Change your thoughts, change your opinions, change your beliefs, change your attitude. I'm going to tell you to change your emotions as well. Use the fire within you to support the changes you need to make. I think that's a great message for us for the weekend. All right, everybody. That is it for me today. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great weekend. Don't forget to hit the like button. Thank you. Thank you, Sylvester, for that reminder. And yes, you are welcome, Christine. Hopefully that gives you a little bit more depth into who you are. And of course, that reading is now available for you if you are on my website, living-astrology.com. It is on the homepage and it is on sale right now through the end of August for $179 versus $199. So take advantage. All right, everybody, take care.